Hey, hey. We made it to lucky day number 7 of chapter 7. If only this was on the 7th page. But our topic today, guys, is going to be something that you may have seen before and not even realized it. We're going to be dealing with something called special right triangles. And you're probably thinking all the right triangles have seemed special, as difficult as they've all been. But check this out. We're going to be dealing with two kinds of triangles here. Something called a 45-45-90 triangle and the properties of a 30-60-90 triangle. And we're going to use these to determine the lengths of sides of these triangles. So we're going to use their angles to help us out with the lengths of the sides. So angles will help us find sides. Angles will help us find sides. And so when I look at this, we're going to really need to break this down based off each kind of triangle. Let's start with 45-45-90. First off, you've got to know these formulas. These are just something that, is not going to be written down. You've got to know them. And they're not long, they're not complicated, but there's going to be 3 in total. And to start off with, the first special triangle we're going to have is called a 45-45-90 triangle. And if you're wondering what 45-45-90 means, what does that add up to be? That's right, that adds up to 180, almost like 180 degrees. So in other words, 45-45-90, check it out. This is the degrees of a triangle. 45, 45, we know this angle goes to this side. This angle goes to that side, and 90 degrees goes to our longest side, the hypotenuse. This formula is used when a triangle is an isosceles right triangle. So in other words, if this angle is the same and this angle is the same, then guess what? This side and this side are congruent. These are the same side. But that side here is going to be different. There's only one formula, thankfully, associated with 45-45-90. And so here's how it goes. If you want to find the hypotenuse is always going to be equal to either leg, because they're the same leg. Again, reminder, same leg, same leg, times the square root of 2. Because we know the hypotenuse needs to be the biggest side, which means that it'll take a leg and multiply it by a number that'll make it slightly bigger. Now, you can also use this formula if you know the hypotenuse to solve for the leg, right? Divide by the square root of 2. But we'll worry about that a little bit later. Let's look at the second one. So we've also got a triangle called 30-60-90. You guys can probably guess that is a triangle where one angle is 30 degrees, goes to that side. One angle is 60 degrees, goes to that side. And one angle is 90 degrees, goes to that side. None of the sides in this triangle are the same because none of the angles are the same. So there are actually 2 formulas associated with this. And we need to remember that the longer leg, when we're talking about this formula, the longer leg will always be opposite the bigger angle. So bigger angle means bigger side. So if that's 60 degrees, that means this is going to be the long leg. If that's 30 degrees, that means across from it is going to be the short leg. And then, of course, we have the hypotenuse over here. So here are the 2 formulas that go with this, guys. The first one's going to seem pretty similar to what we had up here. It's going to be hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the short leg. And you're going to notice a pattern here because in the next formula, when we're talking about finding the long leg, that's going to be equal to the short leg times, not the square root of 2, but the square root of 3, as we're dealing with 30, 60, 90. We're dealing with multiples of 3 here. That can be how you remember this. 3, 6, 9. Don't think yin yang twins. We're talking, you can remember the square root of 3 there. So these are our three formulas. These two for 30, 60, 90. That one for 45, 45, 90. So let's put them into practice, guys. Check it out down here. Looks like we've got, I see 60 degrees. I see 90 degrees. That must mean this is 30, 60, 90. So we're going to use one of these two formulas. We need to find the missing sides. So in this case, they gave us the hypotenuse. And here's a little pro tip. If they give you the hypotenuse, find the short leg first. If they give you the hypotenuse, find the short leg first. So we know that to find the short leg, it's going to be 2 times it to equal the hypotenuse. So it'll be 16 equals 2 times, and then which one's our short leg? It's what's across from 30 degrees. So y is our short. So 2 times y. Well, divide by 2. We know y equals 8. So our short leg is going to be 8. And again, we got that by using this formula up here. We need the hypotenuse. We set it equal to 2 times our variable we didn't know that represented the short leg, and we solved it to find that. Now, to find the long leg, we're going to need to do the short leg times the square root of 3. So long leg is going to be x. We'll have x equals the short leg 8 times the square root of 3. And guess what? You can't break that down. There's nothing you can do to the square root of 3. Those don't combine together to make some magic number. That's it. You've solved it. So I want you guys to try number 2. And keep in mind here that on number 2, this is also going to be a 30, 60, 90. We don't know our long leg, but we do know our short leg. And we need to find the hypotenuse and the long leg. So take some time, guys, and using these two formulas, see what you can find here. All right. So if you're going to find, in my opinion, the hypotenuse will be the easiest. The hypotenuse is just 2 times the short leg. Well, if the short leg is 2, the hypotenuse is going to be 2 times 2, or 4. So that was pretty easy. U equals 4. Now for the long leg, that's going to be the short leg times the square root of 3. So V is going to equal the short leg, 2 times the square root of 3. And that's all there is to that. So don't overthink this, guys. These are not super duper complicated. All right. Let's flip over to the next page. We will have a couple tougher ones on this page, but nothing we can't handle. It probably would be good to go ahead and look at a couple 45, 45, 90s, right? So let's go ahead and look at, now I'm going to warn you, number 3 is going to be a little bit tough, so hang with me here. Hang with me. So 45, 45, 90. This leg and this leg are going to be the exact same. We already know x and y are going to be equal. So if you find one, you find both. Now the formula for 45, 45, 90 is the hypotenuse will equal a leg times the square root of 2. Well, in this case, we don't know either leg, but we do know the hypotenuse is 4. So let's say we want to find x. How are you going to solve for x? Well, right now you're multiplying the square root of 2 to that. That means you need to divide by the square root of 2. If you're multiplying by any number, you want to divide to get rid of it. Here's the problem, though. You guys may remember back from day 2, we can't have a radical in the denominator. Can't have a radical in the denominator. So what we have to do is we have to rationalize it. We have to multiply this fraction by something that technically is not different, but that will get rid of that. So check it out. we're going to multiply this whole fraction by the denominator. It's called rationalizing. So you multiply the bottom by itself and the top by itself. And what you end up with here, 4 times the square root of 2 is 4 square root of 2 over square root of 2 times square root of 2. That's the square root of 4, which is really just 2. And if you think you're done, double check. Look at our fraction here. Will 4 over 2 reduce? Yes, it will. 2 square root of 2. And if x is 2 square root of 2, then guess what? Y is 2 square root of 2. They're the same thing. All right. Try number 5 for me. Let's see what you guys can do on number 5. And then if you're feeling real confident, try number 6, which is a 30, 60, 90. Try, by the way, you know how we know what this one's going to be? If these two sides are the same, they must have the same angles. So keep that in mind. And I'm going to let you guys go ahead. I'll give you a hint. This side and this side are going to be the same, so take a guess as to what that angle will be. Go ahead, guys, on 5 and 6. Looking at number 5, once again, we know the hypotenuse. We know that's going to be 45 degrees. The problem is we don't know either leg, because obviously they're going to be the same leg. And we obviously know, too, that 45 will transfer over here. That 45 will transfer over here. So, of course, this side and this side are the same. So we're going to have to use the fact we know the hypotenuse. So 17, our height, is going to be equal to one of our legs. We'll go, obviously, we're calling it x, times the square root of 2. And this is probably going to look pretty familiar to our setup up here. We're then going to have to divide by the square root of 2. So x equals 17 times the square root of 2. Once again, we cannot have a radical in the denominator, so we multiply by the denominator, both to the bottom and the top, because this is really just 1. That divided by that is 1. So we end up with 17 times the square root of 2 over square root of 2 times square root of 2 is 2. And 17 over 2 will not reduce, so you got your answer for x. Now this one over here is a little bit more simple. Check this out, 30, 60, 90. We know that y is going to be our long. 60 is bigger than 30. 30 is going to x, that's our short. And of course, 26 will be our height. So let's start by finding our short. If we know the hypotenuse is 26, then we will have 26 equals 2 times our short x. Hypotenuse equals 2 times the short. So 26 equals 2 times x. Divide by 2. We see our short side is going to be 13. Now for our long, the long leg is just the short times the square root of 3. So to find the long, you just go 13 times the square root of 3. And that'll be y. So, sweet. We just got one last page to do, guys. Flip on over for me to this page right here. And we're mostly going to focus on these first two. So, let's take a look. A company logo is shaped like an equilateral triangle. So we know an equilateral triangle is a triangle that has 3 congruent sides. Each side is going to be 2 inches long. So 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches. So we have all 3 sides are the same. What is the height or the altitude of the logo? So we're going to drop that down. And when you drop that down, we know that another word for height. What is another word for height? I may have already said it. It's altitude. And when you drop an altitude, We drop a 2, that creates 2 right angles. So we have a right triangle here and a right triangle here. And of course, we know if this whole thing is 2 inches, that means this piece, I'll change colors here so you can tell, is going to be 1 inch, and this piece. I know that doesn't look like it the way I drew it, but yep. We'll pretend like this is in the middle here. And so we need to find out what is the height. We'll call it x. So think about what we have here. We know normally in an equilateral triangle, all the angles are the same as well, which will mean how many degrees are in a triangle. Well, you got 180. Divide that by 3. That means every angle should be 60 degrees. Here's the thing though, this angle just got split into 2 pieces. That means this angle, the split down the middle, is going to be 30, and that angle is going to be 30. So what kind of triangles do we have here, guys? 30, 60, 90. And if that's the case, we know we've got 2 formulas we could potentially use. Hypotenuse equals 2 times the short, or the long leg is the short times 30, 60, 90, the square root, think 3 of 3. Well, how do we know what we're trying to find? Well, look at our angles. Here's 30. It's going to that side with 1. And here's 60. It's going to x. Ooh, so we're trying to find the long leg. Well, if you're going to try and find the long leg, which is x, you're going to need to use this formula right here. So we will have the long leg, which is x equals our short leg, which we found out was, boom, 1, and multiply that by radical 3. Now don't forget, they actually want us to round this to the nearest tenth. Well, if you multiply anything by 1, it's not going to change it. So let's just do the square root of 3. That's really what's happening here. Okay, round that to the nearest tenth. So our long leg is going to be 1.7 inches. Obviously not as long as our hypotenuse, but longer than the 1 inch that belongs to the short side. Nice. Last problem, guys. I'm going to let you try number 2 for me. Try this one, see how you handle it. Where my baseball players at? We'll let you guys see what you can do here. Go ahead. All right. The distance from base to base, we know in a baseball diamond, which technically is still a square, is 90 feet between each base. Home to first, first to second, second to third, and third to home. 90 feet all the way around. Now the question is, to the nearest foot, how far does a catcher standing at home have to throw the ball all the way across the square to second base? So if they're here, they have to throw the ball to second. Oh, so we just split this right down the middle. By the way, we know if these sides are going to be the same, we obviously know we're dealing with some right angles. Because a square has 4 90-degree right angles. Well, guess what's happening here? These are being split in half. That's 45, that's 45, that's 45, and that's 45. So we have 45, 45, 90, 45, 45, 90, 2 45, 45, 90-degree triangles. Don't forget our formula. Hypotenuse is going to be the leg times the square root of 2. So look at what we're trying to find. We're trying to find this distance right here. Isn't that across from the right angle? Oh, so this is the hypotenuse. So we are trying to find x, which in this case is the hypotenuse of both these triangles. So if that's the case, we then look at the legs, 90, 90, 90, 90. Your hypotenuse should be the leg, 90, times the square root of 2. But once again, to the nearest foot, and I'm going to let us get away that easily, to the nearest foot, what will this exact distance actually be? So hypotenuse is going to equal 90 times the square root of 2. Hey, 127 points. Now watch out, 27. That would round up to approximately 0.3 feet. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Don't forget, our test begins Tuesday. Our test is coming up, guys. It is coming up. So keep that in mind. I'll be talking to you and seeing you then. Take care.